Why is this not working? Good evening and welcome to Not Your Average Church Girl. I am Christine Lockridge, leading lady of this wonderful ministry, a ministry filled with transparency, accountability, and love. And I will let my NYACG sister introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Shaina. I am the coordinator in Utica, New York.
Hey, girl.
Hey.
Yes. I'm so glad that you are here for this conversation. It's really easy to talk to friends. So for y'all who are watching, this is really going to be me and Shaina talking. You can go ahead and put in the comments any questions, any comments that you may have. Also, make sure that you share and like. Before we get started, Not Your Average Church Girl was founded July 22nd, 2017. And we recently released our ministry book, Not Your Average Church Girl. And it is our desire to have women to join who are single as well as married mentors to support us in our process, our journey. And so thank you all for joining. So we ask that you will like and share and love this specific broadcast. And this has been a hot topic throughout the day. Every Saturday of this month, we come together and we talk about one of our principles. And so tonight we are talking about principle number 2, flee fornication. I know that's a big thing. In our ministry, we're really big on transparency. So we're here together to chat. So Shaina, I think because it's just me and you can keep yourself off of mute. I'll let you know.
Okay.
Thank you for the compliment. Thank you so much. I did my hair. Look at God. Somebody said your hair looks good. Okay. So today I posted, Shaina, sexuality in the church. Drop your comments below. Okay. So I'm going to read one of the comments. I always wanted the elders to be more honest about it, especially when it was so obvious. Not blatant, but honest without compromising because questions were presented. Okay, that was one of the comments. Another one was marriage is sacred and of Jesus Christ. Fornication is a sin and homosexuality is an abomination. Unrepentant sin and abominations lands you in hell. The Bible is clear on this matter, no gray areas. So I wanted to start off with those two comments because when you think of sexuality in the church, I think a lot of people always think about people having kids out of wedlock and someone being gay. Those are the only two things I think people think about. And I wonder if we think about how do we come out of those situations, right?
Yeah.
If we're struggling with those things, how do we deal with them? So tonight, if you have any questions, any concerns, you can drop them in the comments. So I think all of us know this is a ministry that is about Jesus Christ. And so we will always stand on the principles of God's word. So with that being said, Shaina and I will stay here in agreement that we know that fornication, any form, whether adultery, homosexuality is against the will of God and against God's word. But I do want to say before we get too far is that we don't believe that there's a hierarchy of sin. So if you're gay and you're not, or you sleep with a man, it's one is not worse than the other. Yeah, sin is sin.
Yep.
And so I wanted to make sure that I explain that sin is sin in God's eyes. And sometimes I think in the church say, oh, that sin is worse than the other. But sin. We thank God for Jesus who died on the cross for all of our sins because his blood makes us white as snow. So I just wanted to kind of get that intro out. So Shaina, my question to you is, being in ministry, being in the church, how do you, in your opinion, feel like there's ways for us to have practical ways to abstain?
I don't know. Having like accountability partners, you know, if you're feeling like, you may dip or whatever,
right?
Just text that, whoever you're accountability with and be like, sis, I need help, to distract you from going that way. So you won't go that way, because just having that accountability partner, just talking, that can help you from dipping in the sin and
correct.
Keep you whole.
Correct. I agree with you. I used to have an accountability partner that wasn't like for real. So she was like, "Girl, you'll be fine." I'm like, "I'm not gonna be okay. I'm not gonna be okay."
Now
And
you
I
need someone who's
wasn't
gonna
okay.
tell you. Yeah, you can't have somebody who's still,
Right.
not sure themselves. You need somebody who's gonna be like, put you in your place. Look, you do
Right.
not need to go over there. Don't text in nothing. You need somebody who's gonna be strong, because you can't have somebody weak, because they may be telling you that you're gonna be fine, but they probably in the guy houses themselves.
Right. I recognize that. I recognize that, and that's why I am where I am today, because you have to find other women who are strong, if not stronger.
Yep.
Because some people look up to you in leadership, like, "Oh, you're gonna be fine." And you're like, "No, I know me. I know where I came from. Like, I know what I've been exposed to." So I agree with you. Making sure that accountability partner is like legit, like
Yeah.
legit,
And if it gotta be an older person who's seasoned, so be it. Shoot,
And
if I gotta
maybe
call my
tap in
nana,
though. Maybe tap in.
they do.
And they're like, "Hey, honey, what you looking like?" "No, I'm good."
Yep, they got that discernment because they
They
can tell it
do.
all.
They do.
Yes,
And one day we're gonna be like that.
I
Like,
know.
and I
Yeah.
feel like we're already there, right? Like, hey, because the younger girls, you can pick up on stuff like,
Yep. Because like we were in that place at that time, and now we're in the place of the older one where they looking at us like,
right.
So we can be like, we know you're doing something, don't do it. Because I've actually done that to some young girls. I knew they were about to go and do it, and they just was honest with me and told me, and I just told them, don't do it. It's not worth it.
Right. Right. I think you bring up a good point, because I've also been a youth leader in previous churches. I had girls come to me and say, "Hey, Sister Christine, this, that, and the third. This is how I'm feeling. This is what I've done. This is what I plan on doing." And the more that I think that we show transparency in our 30s and 40s, it's going to definitely help the other girls who are in their 20s and in their teenage years. And so I agree with you. We are becoming those women. And I think even though we're telling them the right thing to do, there's sometimes a different approach than what we got.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. It's like approach, like, how are you coming at them? Because if you already in a bad place, you coming sideways, somebody they'll be like, "I don't care."
Because if we do it, we going to hell. That's we got it the tough way. If you do this, you going to hell. God gonna get you. We can't do that with it, because now this generation, they're not scared. You say you're going to hell, they're like, okay. So we got to come at them in a different way where they, understand, like, okay, and talk to them. Don't try to preach to them, but just talk to them like a bigger sister for them.
Right. So I was having a conversation with a friend of mine. He's in the ministry, and he had mentioned that his parents tried to teach him, about sexuality, but they were kind of conservative about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so they weren't like blatant, like, "Don't do this. This is why you shouldn't," whatever the case may be. And so I really think, I'm not a parent. Maybe you can give insight because you are. I think that as the youth are growing up, you can't just tell them you're going to hell. Some of them will take it, but a lot of them, they need extra how come, why. And I think it's important to teach the biblical part as well as statistics.
Yeah.
And showing them in the natural, like, if this happens, this can happen. If this happens, this can happen. So it might pull things back. You might have emotional wounds if you make this choice.
Yep.
And then showing them that spiritual part, explaining to them how they both coincide. Because I remember, I moved a lot when I was younger, and we were a part of different ministries where there was like classes for the girls to be pure. And the drummer or whoever sitting on the row on the other side is okie doking with 5 other girls. And you're like, why are y'all only teaching us to be pure? Like, what's up with brother blah, blah, blah? You know what I mean?
It's always one-sided to me. It's one-sided. They harder on the women, the females, and then the guys just doing what they want.
Yeah,
like
that brings up
different girls.
So a whole other thing. Behold that. But I really feel, and I just really believe that, especially with how the teens are growing up now, it's important for us to say, these are statistics. This is things that can happen to you just naturally. Here's the spiritual part. At the end of the day, we still gonna talk about heaven and hell. Like, we still gonna tell you what's up. And like you said, using those practical things, like having accountability. I think also, I think I had to learn some music you just can't listen to when you're single. Like when you're married, you do whatever you want. But when you're single, certain songs, even the season, a smell, I'm like, oh, you just bring me back. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, oh, it's the winter time. It's cuffing season. Yes, if you don't follow the Ruth and Boaz series, you should, because we're cooking up something real good for cuffing season. But yeah, it's like music, even like how late you're hanging out with somebody, and it's not about being late, because you can have sex any time of the day. We're not stupid.
Exactly.
Just knowing yourself, like, I can't spend the night. You can't be over here like that. Mm-hmm. You have to know yourself. And something I talk about in the book is like, when you're single and you know what sex is, it's hard to abstain. It can be if you're not making yourself busy, accountability. But like, imagine, you get married at 30, you don't die till 7. That's a long time to have sex with somebody, right?
Yeah.
That's a long time. But we're so anxious to fulfill this flesh that we don't care. Fasting is also practical too. I forgot to mention that. Fasting, filling this flesh, it'll work.
Yes. Fasting and reading, everything. You gotta do everything to keep everything closed.
Right. I love you. Okay, so you started tapping in about the whole. Well, I started and then you just went in. You opened the floodgate about the men and the women and learning things differently and being held to a different standard. Why do you feel that is?
I don't know. It's always been that way. I think they feel like, because us being women, we have more, we show more, I guess, because like they say, you can't wear a tight skirt, you can't wear tight pants.
Now you're talking a night.
Gotta be can't be showing your cleavage. Close this up. They want us to just like, not saying everybody, but dress homely. But meanwhile, here you got the men. They got loose pants. Now they got tight pants.
Huh?
And what's being said, it's still the women, because they think the women entice the men. It's not always the women enticing the men. The men entice women too, but in different ways. They think we entice women by the way we dress. Mm-hmm. So they're harder on the women. And to me, that's not fair, because if you save a saved man in the church, you should be saved and not be tempted by what somebody wearing. And the females, like if I wear something to church and it may be a little snug, I'm a plus size girl, so things ain't gonna be, loose. I'm wearing a dress for me, for my, my beauty, because I have, confidence to the highest. I'm not dressing for nobody. So if they're looking, that's on them, because they the one who said they saved.
They the ones that said they saved.
They saved. So why you?
They said they saved. So that's
a whole different thing. But
I hear you and I agree with you, and I see both sides, right? Because I've had conversations with some young ladies who, like, they come to church, their mini skirt, and if they start to shout, you can see their booty cheek.
Well, that's
right. No. But we gotta say that because everybody is listening, so I want to make this real plain for everybody.
Yeah, not short, but not come to church with club stuff on.
Right. You know what I mean? Because we're gonna have young ladies watching this too, so. I see the point of making sure that you're modest, like not having everything out, saving something for him to see later when he says I do. I'm super with it. And I understand your point of view. Like, I'm dressing for me. And I think the issue is lust, right? If you have an issue with lust, whether a female or male, you got to get that in check. It's those practical things.
Go
like
back to the
fasting and praying.
Yes.
If you have some addictions and things going on, you got to deal with that in prayer and really have serious counseling and, and mentorship to be like, this is my struggle. Yep. And I think, and I talked to someone else who has dealt with homosexuality and talking about strategic prayers in general and, having strategic prayers and asking the Lord to help you when you have your urge, whatever it is, like, Lord, help me. Help me. And I believe that if we ask God help, he'll prove himself to be a helper. I believe that.
Yeah.
I believe that.
I was seeing a comment on here that it's not accurate because he's saved. He can't be tempted. He is going to be tempted. We all get tempted. But I'm saying that it's always put on the women that we're tempting the man.
Mm-hmm. I see. Hold on. We got 3 different. So y'all know I'm using StreamYard. I feel proud of us. Not your average church girl. Yes, if you just came on in, welcome to Not Your Average Church Girl. We're ministry filled with transparency, accountability, and love. And we, every Saturday in the month of October, we're coming together and we're talking about one of our principles. And today is fornication. Yeah, I see that. Must be on the other group. But yeah, I think I disagree with that as well, but that's okay. That's okay. Okay. So Shaina, we kind of talked about this in a previous live, but being a mom, trying to strive to live for Christ, what is some advice that you have for single moms?
As far as like what, like being not.
You know what? I don't know if I can tap in, but tell me if I can't. So let me ask this.
Go ahead.
Let me rephrase my question. Thank God for wisdom. Okay. So for a girl who has had a child, still in love with their father, whatever the case may be, how, if you're trying to then strive, you've had sex with that person, you've had a kid, whatever the case may be, what advice would you give them of trying to get out of a relationship that is against God's will in the areas of having sex outside of marriage?
How do you get, well, with me, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. You good.
With me, I had to just cut it off. I had to, because they would stay, I don't want to get into too much detail.
Right. That's what I'm saying. But in general, like, what advice? That's a good one. You can't stay over here no more.
Yeah, like, because he was here, and I was like, you got to go. You can't. I took all the stuff out. You got to go. And I just, because I was talking with my pastor, and he was like, you're changing. You got to cut things off. So, and I was, my flesh didn't want to, because, that's your child's father, but praying on it, and the God was like, you know what you need to do. So I cut it off, and I said, you got to go. And after that was nothing. So, and sometimes it can be because you have that soul tie with that person, you created a human being together, and it's going to be a struggle. It's going to be like, how do you, still maintain a friendship and not take it to that level of seeing each other? And you just got to have your mind made up, just be like, we can't do this. And just, praying. It takes a lot of praying. And, I was vented to some friends, but I was vented to friends who would tell me, Shay, you don't need this, not someone who be like, you can still do it. And I didn't do that. And I was talking to my mother, and I literally I cut it off. I had to for me to feel better. And I didn't want to see my child to keep seeing me settle, for less, pretty much, of not being married, and, her growing up seeing, okay, it's okay. I don't want her to think that it's okay to be with somebody and I'm in the church and not married to them, and doing stuff. So I had to put my, flesh under subjection, and just like, I can't, and tell them I can't do this. And I just got to end it. It's going to be hard, but you got to do it.
Right. Miss Carol, that's right. Get it right or cut it off. That was to Quell. Quell, thank you for joining. Thank you, Jess. Thank you, Shatika. Thank you guys for joining. Make sure that you share, because other people definitely need this. Okay, so you bring up another point. I think, and I can be transparent and say this. I think that once you have messed up, and you have to deal with you, and you have to deal with consequences of sin. That is something that we don't want to do. Like you said, I didn't want to let it go. My flesh was like, nah, I'm going to stay. But I think once you start to develop a close relationship with God, and you recognize you have to deal with these consequences, you start to say, either I'm going to be right, or I'm not.
Or not. Yep.
And that's what you say, I'm going to be right, or I'm not. And not to say you won't be tempted, not to say it won't be hard, not to say you won't end up in predicaments that, could be a little iffy. At some point, you got to say, like, I'm going to do right. I'm going to do right. And so I think one of the biggest things is sometimes it's hard for us to let go, because we don't want to deal with the consequence of being lonely, of raising a kid by ourselves. Like, or just, that's what I know. Yeah. Now I got to let go of what I know and be over here by myself.
Yep.
And that's one of my prayers that I have for a lot of the women, because when you let go, you have to look at yourself. Like, how did I end up in this situation? What do I need to do differently?
You got to forgive yourself.
Right.
Because I took a long time of, beating myself up, and it took a long time for me to forgive myself. And that comes with it. Like, how did I let this happen? And you just really got to pray and just give it to God to be like, Lord, help, take that burden off of you, because you're going to be beating yourself up. Not everybody. I'm just speaking for myself. I beat myself up about it, and I just had to. God said is you have to forgive yourself in order to move forward. Because if I don't forgive myself, I'm still going to be stuck in that and thinking about it and bound by that. So I had to forgive myself and move forward.
I agree with you. And I also think in addition to like having to deal with the consequence, when you're in leadership, you make a mistake. You recognize how many people were looking up to you. And I don't even mean like you're a first lady or you're like you have a title, just a leader. Because there's people who look up to you. You don't even recognize that they do.
Yeah.
You don't even recognize it. And then you mess up. You're like, man, I didn't know this was going to be the repercussions.
Yeah. And at that time, I was a secretary for the young people in the New York State Council. So having to step down, and I'm in leadership, but everybody knows me, and having to, say why I had to step down. They obviously seen it, but in leadership and being in the services for the councils and stuff like that, singing, choir, praise team, young people department, everybody knew. And then to do that, it seemed like everybody was just looking at me. That's how I felt. Having to go to church, usually I'm doing everything and then I got to sit down and I got to, so it seemed like all eyes was on me because here I am, I had a child out of wedlock. In the being active in church and, the council and my home church. It was tough.
Yeah. I could imagine. And I think one of the things that we as women who have been through, turmoil situations is to pray for the younger women. And I know the scripture says the older women will pray, lead and, teach the young women, but we're older than other women, young women. And so I just, and I'm sure you've experienced this, when someone messes up, you're quick to go and catch them and talk to them because you know what it feels like. You know what it feels like to be alienated, and not even just about having a kid out of wedlock, just messing up in general.
Yeah.
Being heartbroken or finding out you were sleeping with somebody and he was sleeping out with 3 other people or whatever the case may have been, or he had a baby on you and you thought it was just you. So there's a lot of things that the young girls are going through, or wondering what things feel like or what they look like, all these thoughts, and they're nervous to ask. And so that kind of leads me into my next question, just having your own experiences, and I'll chime in too. What are some things that you think would be helpful for not just the young women, but also the young men? What can we do? Jennifer said, I am a witness. What are some things that we can do to help the youth? What are some things we can do?
As far as in the church or just in general?
I would say in the church. Let's start with that first.
Really having mentors in the church to help either men for younger boys and us for younger girls, and being able to talk outside of the church. You don't have to be in the church to talk. Have that mentorship where we can go and just have a day out and talk about it, because a lot of the young people don't have anybody to talk to. They can't express themselves of how they really feel without being judged. And so that's why I always try to make myself available to anybody who needs to talk, and not with me not even saying anything, but just for them to vent, and I'm here to listen. And when I'll give advice and stuff like that, but not to judge them and not to put the Bible on them. They're still going to have the Bible, but I'm not throwing at them as I'm preaching at them. You know what I mean? And just talk to them like, I've been through it. I tell young girls, I've been through it. I've been through in love and thought I was in love and having a child. I tell them about me, and then they open up to me. And so we need that more in the church, and not so much of putting a hammer down on them and telling them, well, if you don't do this, God's not pleased with you. They know that already. They know, they messed up, or if they haven't messed up, what can happen, and going to hell or whatever, because everything is like you said, we going to hell if this happens. They know all of that. What else are we going to say to them besides, you're going to hell? We got to be able to really talk, because these young people are going through a whole lot, and they need us to be there to have a shoulder to cry on, and they just need to cry because maybe they can't go to their mom and talk. They can't go to their dad and talk. So if we have mentors in the church that is not judgmental and really be there for that young person to open up.
I agree with you completely. And I think in order for the youth to have buy-in from mentors, they actually have to hear you say your story.
Yeah.
And I think that's where we don't get that transparency. We get it here on Not Your Average Church Girl. Like, we're transparent, putting it all out there on Facebook Live.
Yeah.
We don't always get that transparency from a deacon or from a missionary. Like, if you're a single missionary and you have 5 kids and you're not married, like, you've had sex. Like, so you need to talk about your transition from not being married and having kids to now I am abstinent, I am celibate, and now I'm on missionary. So we have to hear, we even have to hear, as quiet as this is kept, we have to hear couples that share that, yes, we had sex before we got married. That we shouldn't have, but we did. And this is, and maybe there's consequences to that people don't know about, right? It's important for single women and men and youth to hear. So I agree with you. I think the step before mentorship is we got to start having the saints start sharing their story. And, of course, use wisdom of how much you're sharing and where you're sharing it.
Yeah.
How much to, so that then they're like, oh, okay. So deacon so-and-so, sister so-and-so, I'm going to kind of slide in. And then we have to have a discerning ear when they're actually trying to get help, but not really, wanting to tell their business. And then say, girl, and pick up, like you said, with that discernment.
Yeah.
I also think, and this is a teacher in me, and this may be something that God has given me to do, which I don't know where I'm going to have time, but to create a curriculum that helps the parents and the church. So at home, what do I say and how do I explain it? Because we know that we should abstain. But if our kids aren't going to abstain, what do we say to them? And how do you deal with that? And having those transparent conversations. And so having a curriculum where parents are figuring out how to talk to them about things, as well as the church is able to too. So I also think it's a bridge. I'm noticing even as a teacher, if the parents are on board and you're on board and the kid sees that, they're like, oh, okay. Yeah. So I think just starting at a young age as teenagers, your hormones are going, okay, let's start talking about that right now. Yeah. And so I was talking to someone who has been married for a while, but when he was single, when he got saved for real, like he abstained. And he said, I was at the gym all the time. I was working out all the time to keep myself out of situations. Yeah. And so that's something that's practical that I think a young man, or a grown man would need to hear, and it would be helpful. Who's going to share their story? Like, I was struggling, but this is what I did.
And a lot of people don't want to share their stories because some people, they're too embarrassed to share it and they just want to keep it hidden. But that story can help somebody who's thinking about it or going through it.
I agree. Let me see these other. I saw someone say, share your story, not knock them down. There is enough judgment in the church, so we are afraid to speak up. That's right. There's enough judgment in the church. They are afraid to speak up. They need someone to turn to. I completely agree. I completely agree. Any last words, Shaina? I think we've discussed a lot. I think we've been transparent and clear. Is there anything that you want to just encourage single women about, or single moms? I'll give the floor to you.
Single moms, just
or singles. It's up to you. Whichever route you want to go.
Well, I'll try to hit a little bit of both, because I'm single and I'm a single mother.
Come on.
So just as a single mother, if you're out there and you're struggling to break away from your child's father, whatever, just do it. There's never going to be a right time, but you got to make that first step and just be like, I want better, because you can't, like I was thinking in my head, like, I can't keep playing house anymore. You got to be tired of playing house. So, just let it go, because God has somebody better for you. And I know for myself, God has somebody better for me, coming. So, I'm waiting, I'm praying and I'm waiting. Like you said in that book, there's plenty of time to show my husband all of that. So like, just, pray, fast, and have an accountability partner. Talk to somebody. If you're really struggling and you feel like you're going to dip in, just talk to somebody who's strong. Don't talk to somebody who is weak. Because if you talk to somebody who's weak, y'all going to be doing the same thing at the same time, different places. You got to have somebody who is
true.
That's going to tell you about yourself and be like, you deserve better than that. Stop being just a side piece for him. You need somebody better. God got somebody better for you. So it's hard, but you got to do it. And with me, with my daughter, she's my main focus. And I just pray to God that he bless me with somebody who's going to love me and love my child. And if they can't come in and love my child as theirs, that's understandable. But I'm waiting for that right person that's going to come in, because God got that right person for you. Just, it may seem like it's a long time, but God got someone perfect for you. So just keep praying, keep fasting. Don't answer the texts. Did you see the text message? Like, I had got a text. I didn't even answer it. Some guy, I didn't even answer it because I'm like, I'm not even gonna go that route. And if you gotta block them, hit the block.
My.
So I had to do that.
Is real out here.
So it's just
like, is real.
Say it again.
I said the block ministry is real.
It is. Block the second. Block. Because I can't put myself back in that predicament. I can't go that route anymore. Like, God has, blessed me to do things and be in a different position than I was before. You can't can't keep looking back to what? And have yourself feeling emotions all over the place. There's no time for that. God got the best for you, and you want the best for yourself.
Right. I agree with you. And then the question is, are you ready to break the cycle?
Exactly.
Are you ready to break
the cycle?
Be
ready. I was ready to break that cycle. Like, I was like, I can't do this no more. But it starts with with yourself.
Right. Jennifer said, amen. Good job, Shaina. Jasmine said, ignore.
You got to.
Oh my goodness gracious. Oh my goodness. Well, I appreciate you being here. And I also just want to encourage the women to say, keep yourself first. Keep God first and yourself first. And I think a lot of times we are really, really anxious about getting married and where is he at and when will he come. And I always tell people, I excuse me, I never guarantee the women of Not Your Average Church Girl that everybody's gonna get married. I never guarantee that, but I do guarantee that we're gonna have to see the Lord's face in peace. And one of the things that we have to do is make sure that we're ready to see Jesus. And that is always going to be our main focus. Our main focus is not to get down the aisle. Our main focus shall always be to make it to heaven and to hear the Lord say, well done, thy good and faithful servant. Amen. And that's not to take away that we want to be married, or it's not to take away that you may want to have kids, or whatever the case may be. Just making sure our focus is on God. I think when you have that accountability, when you have those practical things that you plan on doing, it's going to help you stay on the right path. So, Shaina, I appreciate your transparency and you being on here. For all of those, again, we have released our ministry book, Not Your Average Church Girl. So you can visit our website, notyouravagechurchgirl.org, and you can purchase the book. We also have a new membership, which is a subscription for $4.99 a month, and it is called The Upper Room. And so if you know anything about Day of Pentecost, you need to be in the upper room, ladies. So make sure that you go online and visit our ministry. We are full of transparency, accountability, and love. Make sure that you share. Make sure that you share some more. I love you. We love you. When God tells you to do something, do it. And when you do it, he will provide the way. Have a blessed night, everybody. Thank you, Shaina.
You're welcome.
Bye.